Welcome to What Friends Do Kitchen Counter Chats.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited that you're here today, Mandy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Oh, so as a quick reminder, we are talking about crappy times in life sometimes when friends need support of each other.
Perfect.
And we gather in the kitchen and we figure shit out.
Yep.
And when I was planning the podcast, you were one of the very first people I thought of.
Wow. Oh my gosh. What an honor.
Because I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
So fun. And when something happens in life, there are two responses. Always someone says, tell the family I'm thinking of them and let me know what I can do to help. Do you need a meal? Mm-hmm. Can I bring you food? Mm-hmm. And your love language is food.
Oh, thank you.
And I was like, who can talk about food? And it was definitely you.
Thank you for thinking of me in that way.
Well, of course. So for our listeners, and we'll put your bio out there later, but great. You own an amazing company called Just Pop In with your twin sister.
Yep, with my twin sister, Carly.
And you have opened a restaurant, lots of restaurants. You do all kinds of stuff. So clearly food is your love language.
Food is my love language. It's my heartbeat and soul.
Yes. So before we get started on your heartbeat and soul, the first question that I like to ask my guests as you join me at the kitchen counter is, do you have a kitchen counter moment that you'd be willing to share? Like anything in your life where you've had to bring in the crowds and sit around the kitchen counter and figure something out?
Oh gosh. I thought this was going to be a naughty question, but anyway.
I mean, it could be.
Just kidding. Well, you know what? I think that the kitchen is it's a place of comfort. I guess my most fond memories of being in a kitchen is being at my grandparents' house, and it was a very casual environment, and my home is a very casual environment. And when my kids were little, we would sit on the kitchen counter. We have a perfectly fine dining room table, but it's just a casual place where we didn't have to have formal conversations, and we could just talk and be. And then likewise with friends. I mean, it just seems to be a gathering place, and putting food at the center of friendships and conversation. It's a grazing moment, not only to serve yourself, but also a place to come together and stay together.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why you have created all of the special things and special environments for people.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. So, when I was also thinking about having you on here, I was reminded that in the very early days of lockdown and the pandemic, you were also, I think, the first person to bring me a little drop and go food. Yes. And so is that something that I assume you do? You know what?
I like to call them deposits. And the pandemic obviously hit everybody. But I was thinking about the people specifically at that time that we were so connected, and our FaceTime connections, and we would stay on the phone or FaceTime and drink wine and discuss. But I just think that food is a love language, and there is. I always think about this. I had talked to this man who was an elderly food lab chemist. And he was just so wonderful. And I was mesmerized. I was just there to develop some recipes. And he was just talking about the sensation. And I couldn't take my eyes off of him. The sensation of when food hits your tongue and the relationship that it has with your brain and the sensations that you have. And I'm studied in biology, so I would think, cellularly, yeah, I can totally picture that. But also, food is medicine, and it is so healing. Not only from it's a mutual, I feel like, kind of thing where my preparing food, and specifically for somebody in particular, it's a very thoughtful process. It depends on what's going on in their life, what colors that they love, what kind of, sure. Yellow, let's yellow peppers or whatever that might be. But it's such a creative process, and it's so rewarding, not only for me, but I hope for my recipient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, those little deposits, making little drink kits and food. It's just fun being creative. And I think it shows people how much you really love and adore them. And it's a space where I can cook for you and also bring in sort of my family traditions and those traditions that made me feel safe and comforted as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully that translates to the recipient who gets to enjoy it.
Oh,
yeah.
Gosh. Yes. Well, and so specifically when someone has something going on and you take them food, I'm super caught on thinking about what colors someone likes and how that can turn into what you're creating for them.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Like I just love that so much. And now I'm like, I always make the same things when I take food to someone. Like I kind of got my standbys.
Sure.
It didn't occur to me to think about color.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And, I think about, like at the beginning of COVID or different other big life events, and how a big life event might be small to somebody. In perspective, a small life event might be big to somebody. Mm-hmm. And just thinking about what that is and like digging back into life perspective and how to best serve them. Mm-hmm. I mean, food is really, it's an act of service when you're gifting food. It's emotional.
It is super emotional.
Yeah.
And remembering that just because something is great for me, when I make it for someone, I need to think about, really, is this going to be nourishing for them? Our house, it's really hard for me to accept food from others because my son had so many food allergies.
That's right.
And now he only has tree nuts, which we're super excited that we're down to only one thing. Yeah. But when he was younger, I couldn't receive food from people because they didn't necessarily understand how that works. And so that's just thinking about the recipient.
Yeah.
Is so important.
Absolutely. And I think, thankfully, that there's more of an awareness with food allergies and gluten, and it's more talked about. And so even when we develop our menu at Just Pop In, or if I'm just developing something at home, it's always something that is considered.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and you always do such a lovely job with presentation, obviously.
Oh, thanks.
But I think when I'm taking food to someone, I really try to be thoughtful around how I'm delivering it.
Yes.
Because if I'm serving food in my kitchen or like out on my patio, I love to use beautiful plates and all this stuff. But if I'm taking food to someone else, I'm not as fancy as you are with food preparation. So I'm like, I just want to get recyclable containers so that they don't have to return anything to me. They don't have to have an extra thing. Anyway, but portions, right? Like when I take food to someone, I'm trying to think through, okay, there's like 4 people in their house. They don't need me to make a massive tray of something and have a lot of leftovers.
Sure.
Sometimes they might want to.
Sure.
But, I think it was the day we got home from the hospital with my son. And for the next 5 days, all of my friends showed up with a lasagna.
Naturally, right.
Which is wonderful.
Lasagna for a decade. Yes.
But we had so much lasagna. We were like, I cannot have another lasagna. We did not have space in our freezer to store another lasagna.
Right.
And they were all in glass dishes. So I was like, I can't keep their dish for a month, but I don't need and
then managing who belongs to who and
Right. So many little things.
Well, yeah. And again, it's wonderful that, and I don't know, I think that food is art. Mm-hmm. And so considering when you're gifting somebody food, I think it's also fun, like the packaging. Packaging like with our popcorn or packaging, delivering these little deposits. I think it's so fun. And like you said, oh my gosh, we had all these lasagnas and now we have to put them in the freezer. And and just considering what occasion in which you are gifting somebody.
Right.
Maybe they aren't in a space where they can eat lasagna or have all this food.
Right.
And what do we do with it? And so thinking about dry ingredients that would be simple for them to put together, but packaged sweetly. Just little things like that.
Yeah, well, and I am glad you mentioned that as well, because I think there's a lot of opportunity to gift food, not just for dinner at the house.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I think about when someone's in the hospital and in non-COVID times and you can have visitors there, or maybe they're, in a place where there's a lot of family, and you could take a tray of sandwiches.
Sure.
Or, you would take something much nicer than that, but I would probably just order a tray of sandwiches and be like, here's some food for you.
Right.
So thinking about other meals, not just an evening dinner type of meal.
Well, yes. And I was thinking too, there's a handful of friends, during Jazz Fest, my sister and I would go to the New Orleans Jazz Festival every year. And in COVID, we obviously had to skip Jazz Fest. But to also help celebrate it, there's a jazz festing at home, like Sirius station or whatever. But we were putting together hurricane packages, and delivering them, and like the beads and whatever. And it's just, someone might not love that, but it's unexpected and it's fun. And I think it is a energy elevator. I think about, there's a few different people that I know love dirty martinis. So just getting the little plastic martini glasses and, a thing of olives and olive juice or the olive packets and a little Tito's and then putting it in a little disposable, almost purse, just different things like that, where it's like, oh, that's fine.
That's really fun.
Yeah. So maybe they're not hungry, but there's another method to serve them.
There is definitely another method to serve them. Oh, that's a really fun idea. And maybe even taking hot chocolate packets for kids.
Oh, yeah.
And
sure.
putting together an entire...
Oh, the kids. That's right. The kids. Oh, gosh. Okay. I'll remember that the next time.
Maybe, sometimes you need the martini packet just to get through.
Just be a better mom.
I think there's definitely something to be said for that some days. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So another idea that I have tried, and someone who worked for us at What Friends Do for a long time, her favorite thing to deliver was a breakfast basket.
Oh, cute.
And so Saturday morning or even Sunday night, taking a breakfast basket so that no one has to think about breakfast as they're leaving.
That's adorable.
Morning, right?
And I barely think about breakfast most days anyway. So that would help. It would help.
Yes,
inspire the morning food.
Inspire
Absolutely.
The morning food. And if you've got a lot going on, you've already got some bananas or oranges and
cute,
some bagels and whatever. It's not high protein things, but grab and go stuff so that you can run out the door.
Sure. And it's comforting. It's just having food is such a privilege. I think about this all the time, thinking about, having dinners at my grandparents' house and just hearing their stories and the food that they would keep in their home, like canned foods, which was part of their time during the World War II movement, and how just what a privilege it is that we have access to what we have access to and not taking it for granted. Mm-hmm. So even bananas and oranges and bagels, I'm like, yes. And kids love it. It doesn't have to be fancy. It's just thoughtful.
It's just thoughtful. And it's just one of those things that isn't one more thing you have to do.
Right.
Right.
And things taste better when it's gifted to you by love. You're being gifted. There's a deposit that is being developed for you. And it's like, wow, that is still out there. And isn't that wonderful?
That is just eating it with love is so, you can just feel it.
Yeah.
It just feels different.
100%.
So one time I had a broken foot. I always have a broken foot, right?
Always a broken foot.
Always a broken foot. But something that someone offered to do for my daughter was to pack her lunch and send it with their daughter to school because they were best friends. They were lunch buddies.
Wow.
They sat next to each other. And it was really hard for me to pack a lunch at that time.
Absolutely.
And Claire was a pickier eater.
Yeah, sure.
Some, but she learned to like new foods because they were things that I would never usually pack for her, but it was things that they would,
absolutely.
always
and
pack.
what a beautiful idea. And not only was she thinking about you as your friend, but she was thinking about your daughter. And obviously when somebody is loving to our children, it just elevates the whole experience. And it's so heart lifting and heart scrunching. And I bet your daughter just shined out about it.
Oh, I think she loved it. I think her friend loved having the opportunity to support her.
Absolutely.
And again, now I'm still thrilled because I think there are things that she would not normally have tried. This was in sixth grade or something. Sixth graders don't like anything that their moms pack them for lunch. Right. But if someone else's mom packs it for lunch.
Right. It must be good. I don't know. Got to give it a go.
Right. Oh my
well, I think that is so sweet. And when I'm preparing food, and whether it's a lasagna or whatever it might be, it usually comes from some form of family tradition. And so that for me, when I'm preparing it, it just gives me such joy and gives me the lovely memories of my family and my family heritage and culture, and putting ingredients into food might be somebody else's translation of what they might have in their home. So when I've received food, I'm like, oh, that's their form of this or that. And so I just think it's so neat that one dish can cross cultures. And I think it's just such a coming together. I really love that.
I really love that. And so we talk about lasagna a lot, and I don't mean to downplay lasagna because
lasagna is just like the family go-to. Most people, it serves a lot and plenty.
Yes. But again, sometimes you get tired of the lasagna.
Yeah.
And it is it's kind of labor intensive.
It's labor intensive. And and I wonder if that has anything to do with tradition.
Oh.
It takes a lot of time.
It does.
There's a lot of chopping. There's a lot of layering. And I just wonder if that had come from some time in our past that it is such a labor intensive meal that it shows the recipient how much you adore them. I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know.
I love it. Yeah. I really love that. I hadn't considered that. I was going in the I wonder if I should now be thinking more of what is my family's comfort meal?
Sure.
And my family's comfort meal is not necessarily lasagna because it is what you said, which it's super labor intensive.
Yeah, right.
But I like to be able to show if they don't have any special, food requests or anything like that.
Yeah.
But to be able to say, this is what my family loves for whatever.
Yeah. And it's a nourishing meal for us. And so hopefully by gifting it to you, it will do the same for your family. Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who don't cook.
Sure.
And
my sister's not a cooker. She doesn't
Really?
She does not love to cook. And so we live a street apart from each other, and I'm a stone's throw. And she's like, "What's for dinner?"
Okay.
And I love it. I mean, I get to prepare food for more family members, but she's just she's artistic and she's creative. And I think that those two elements go into preparing food. But she's like, I don't get the satisfaction of making food.
But I think that there's still a lot of opportunities for her to, clearly in your business and in your line of work, you figured that out. But I think that there are opportunities for the general public to help their friends when some life event is happening, even if they don't cook.
Right.
Right? Buy them a gift card, have DoorDash deliver.
There we go. Absolutely. And something else I noticed, I had a girlfriend have a baby recently, and it used to be that people would send out a meal train. And now there's a few dates, but mostly DoorDash, Uber Eats, all these cards. And it's then they can pick and choose when they want food, when they need it. So they don't have a freezer full of 7 lasagnas.
Right.
I just think it's so thoughtful, and it's fun. It's I wouldn't have thought about ordering from this place, but it's complimentary. And so it takes some of the financial pressure off. And so, I just think it's I think it's so much fun.
Well, and whenever I think about that, I go back to like the night before my dad's funeral, and we had all of this food in our house and none of us wanted it. And we all wanted something different.
Yeah.
And we just went to a restaurant and sat down so that we didn't have to clean up. We could all order the food that we wanted.
Absolutely.
And we could just kind of check out for a little bit.
Which is necessary.
And that was something that a friend had suggested. They're like, just go out to eat.
Sure.
And so remembering that, because everybody has, when you're just not always all feeling for the same comfort food.
Absolutely. And also with such an event with death, or specifically a parent, sibling, uncle, like my Uncle Kevin, I think about him so much, and my grandparents. It's like there's so much grief and planning surrounding that celebration of life that it's almost like you need to get out of your home and out of each other's grief, and going into a space like that it's a neutral zone, like a restaurant. It's a neutral zone where you can just, like you said, eat what is going to make you feel the best.
Right.
Sometimes you might not feel like eating. So you can still sit in the company of your family while they're enjoying what they are enjoying.
Right.
But I can appreciate that.
So it was one of those things that I still 24 years ago remember so vividly sitting. It was like an Applebee's, just sitting in the booth at Applebee's, and we could all order what we wanted.
I love that so much. I remember a Thanksgiving at my grandparents' house, and my uncle lived in Chicago. Our family kind of lived all over the place, and we were all trying to get to the space, or my grandparents' house on time. And it was just kind of layering, and we're all like, oh, the hell with it. And then we drove to, we were from Northwest Indiana. So we drove to Chicago and went to like an Irish bar and just ate mashed potatoes and a beer. And I'm like, this might be one of the more fun like Thanksgivings. And it was because sometimes it can be a lot of pressure. And I feel like for the host to prepare Thanksgiving meals or whatever. But I have a fond memory of that night. Yeah.
Well, and it's something a little different. And so you will remember it.
Yeah, right.
Because
we stepped out of a little tradition, which is okay. Yeah. And it develops new traditions.
Yes. So on the note that you mentioned that sometimes it's overwhelming for the host, even if they love to cook.
Sure.
But I know there have been times where I'm like, oh, yes, I'm signing up and bringing a meal. And then I'm like, it's 4:15.
I'm out of time.
I am out of time. I barely have time to put together anything for myself.
Yep.
But I have found a meal that I kind of like to get, and it's super fast. And so
do tell.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will run to the store and get a rotisserie chicken.
Oh yeah.
And they have I know there's certain nights of the week, different grocery stores will have a $25 meal.
Yeah.
And so you can get the rotisserie chicken.
I need to know about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they'll have a whole meal ready to go that you don't even have to cook. So you can get the mashed potatoes and some veggies and a couple of things from the deli, and
I love it.
A box of brownies and a little thing of flowers and a little thing of wine, or a big thing of wine.
Yeah.
And
depending on how your day's going.
Whatever you're whatever you think your friend might need. And then I'm like, okay, I got dinner done.
Yes.
I'm dropping it off. It's healthy enough.
Right.
And I mean, it's very healthy. It's not not healthy enough.
Yeah. But, right.
So that is one of my new, I'm out of time.
I love that. And I think about with kids being in how active they are. Yeah. My two kids are on different schedules and pickups. And by the time we all get home together, it could be almost 9 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And so I love that idea of picking up a $25 meal, and we can kind of, eat in layers of time. But I love that. I did not know that.
Oh, yeah.
Taking that with me.
Yeah, I would take that with me and you can just run in wherever. And if I'm taking it to someone else, I can go to the store that's near their house. So it's
Oh, yeah.
on my way.
Right.
Done.
I love
Now,
it.
the packaging is not as beautiful.
Yeah.
There are not a lot of colors in the meal that I just mentioned.
Well, a little tan can go a long way.
Uh-huh. Well, that's kind of where we're going.
Put an orange or banana next to it.
Add a thing of flowers.
There you go. Exactly.
And it'll be all set. It'll be all set.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, that's really fun. Well, so what, do you have any tips for families who, like, I know when my kids were little, they would want to be involved.
Yeah.
And helping.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Helping sometimes is not helping.
Helping sometimes is not helping. That is very true.
Oh
but even having them, like, go to the store with you.
Yeah.
To pick out all of the food.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's such a great family experience. When I think about my kids, I was just starting Just Pop In a few years before my kids were born, and just the difference in which I would cook until the time I had them, and they're 18 months apart. But gifting them the opportunity to be involved in, like, just the food process or the recipe making at Just Pop In, or listening to their, like, pure sweet ideas, like, kids would love that. I'm like, you two are my inspiration. Like,
right.
What a great idea. I wouldn't have thought about that.
Right.
So, but yeah, involving the kiddos, or taking the kiddos to a grocery store and they're just, like, getting the cookies and the cookie dough and the batter and, all that stuff. I'm like, that's all good too.
It's all good too.
Yeah. It's all good.
Because then you're like, I think it's nice to then be teaching them how they can be providing this service as well.
Absolutely.
And by, like, their gift of support. Right?
Yes. I love it. And if we get carry out or whatever, my son's always like, because I'm like, I wonder how we can make this. But I'm like, I'm happy it's here and I don't have to make it. But he's always like, Mom, you say that about everything. And I'm like, I guess I do. I mean,
well, that's good. That's what you do.
Yes. And like, I know that you guys love this meal. So I'm like, I want to like deconstruct it and think how we can make it at home.
Oh,
it might not be as good, but it'll be fun.
It'll be fun. It'll be a new experience. It'll be something else to do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really fun. Do you have any other tips for people when they're thinking about taking food to somebody?
Gosh, that's a great question. I think, again, it has just to do with the occasion in which you are gifting them food. I think when it's a celebrated occasion, I think food can obviously elevate the joy of what the occasion is. Mm-hmm. I think in my occasions when I've delivered food, it's been sort of the opposite side of a celebration in terms of happiness. It might be that this person is in their own form of crisis. And again, I just think it's a occasion-based, person-based, family-based. There's a lot of different elements that go into it. It's such a thoughtful process. I guess when I think about that, it's been an occasion. Or just a little deposit. Like, I'm thinking about you today. You have been on my mind so much. I haven't reached out, but I want you to know that I'm thinking of you, and just putting a little porch deposit.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. And I agree. Like, nothing about this is like, there are no hard and fast rules.
Right.
But just keeping the recipient in mind.
Yeah.
When you're creating this and bringing them whatever it is you're bringing them.
Absolutely.
So I have two final questions.
Okay. I'm ready for you.
You're ready.
I'm ready.
They're not naughty and dirty like you were hoping.
We'll talk about that off the...
Yeah, we can turn this off. So what is your favorite thing to do for someone? And you've already shared a lot, but what is your favorite, like, go-to, like, when someone is in crisis, that you, what's the favorite thing that you like to do? It's
usually, food is always typically involved, but curating a package. And it doesn't have to be this over the top joyful sort of package, because I think when I'm thinking of particular occasions and someone's form of crisis might not be the same as a similar occasion or event happening. but just being mindful what that is. And, it might be, it's just curating packages, which I often do.
Oh,
so I'm losing the question, aren't I?
No,
what's my favorite thing to do?
Your favorite thing to do?
It changes. It changes all the time. Yeah. But it's usually curating some form of package, and packaging gives me so much joy. It's almost like a selfish reward, because putting it together and seeing the result and the gratification in that, and hoping that the recipient feels that as well. It's just everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, your packaging does bring a lot of joy.
Thank you.
And you do a lot of that. So,
thank you.
So then the last question is, what is the best thing anyone has ever done for you when you've been in crisis?
Well, that's going to make me cry.
That's okay.
I don't know if it's necessarily a tangible thing, but when I remember this is funny. I remember having dinner at Basbo, and I was in my early 20s, and my Uncle Kevin was there, who he has passed since, and he was the love of my life. I'm going to cry. Oops.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay.
Thank you. And we were with our family, and this whole conversation was just so gloomy. I'm like going, oh my God, family, come on. Can we move on to the next thing? And I remember my uncle kind of joking, going, oh my, you haven't been through anything yet. You know what I mean? I'm like, right. And now I have that perspective. Having challenging moments in your life, I think it can bring you a lot of perspective. And I think it can give you a form of grace that maybe other people in those situations have never been through. But I think the best thing that someone has done for me was gifting me a very simple sentence. And I will never forget it, because it came from a friend of mine. She was like a friend from when I was 4 years old. And it was an occasion that happened later on in my life. And I just said, thank you. Thank you just for being here. And it wasn't a long conversation. She knew the root of what had happened. And she said, I will always leave a light on for you. Oh. And that sentence all by itself, figuratively and physically thinking about that, but it just elevated my, oh my gosh, leaving a light on. I just will never forget it. And when I think about friends that are in crisis, or that are going through whatever they're going through, just being mindful of the person that they are, and being patient and being a listener, and letting them know that I'll leave a light on for you. And this, my friend in particular, I love her so much, and she's so endearing and sincere. And she's someone that I know would never leave my side, no matter what. And so when she said that, I was just like, it just floored me. And that was 20 years ago, but I will take that with me always. And I think that gift of, that was the right thing to say for me in that moment. And that was the best thing I feel that someone has done for me. It just elevated and my thinking.
And not only did that help you in that moment, but clearly it's still with you. So it's helped for a really long time. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a thing. When I think about it, there's a shine and a glow, and there's light. Yeah. Hope.
Light and hope, even in dark situations.
Yeah.
Well, that is how I think of you. As light and hope and joy, and Just Pop In is so exciting and amazing, and you have created such an amazing space. And
thank you.
I really appreciate you taking time to sit down and chat with me today, and sharing all of the, I'm still stuck on incorporating colors that other people like into the food that I create for them. That is going to be a new thing for me.
Fun.
And I promise I'm going to text you soon and be like, so I thought about how to incorporate color.
Yeah.
Because that was so exciting for me.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. That is so sweet. I mean, and today was such a breath of fresh air. started my day off in such a light way. I got to spend it with you and talk about food and family and heart and soul. I mean, these are all my favorite subjects. So thank you.
Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Aimee. I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you.
Thanks.